Hello, and welcome to our first episode of Voices for Change. I'm Kunal, and today we're discussing an extremely important issue, which is housing and shelter in India. This is a topic that affects millions of people, and is something we all need to be aware of. I'm joined by my good friend Anusha today. Anusha, welcome.
Thanks, Kunal. I'm really excited to be here. This is a really crucial topic, and housing has been an ongoing challenge in India, and it's something that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. So I'm really looking forward to diving into it with you.
Let's start by looking at the scale of the problem. India has one of the highest populations in the world with over 1.4 billion people, and the need for housing has been growing at a rapid rate. According to estimates, there's a shortage of around 10 million homes, and this number continues to grow every year. The shortage is particularly felt in urban areas where migration is highest.
Absolutely, and it's not just about numbers. The crisis has many faces. You've got people living in slums or makeshift shelters without proper sanitation, electricity, or even clean water. That affects their health, education, and quality of life, and hence driving the vicious cycle of poverty.
Right, and adding to that, the rural areas aren't doing much better either. You have entire villages where homes are constructed with temporary materials or where families are living in overcrowded conditions. There's a huge disparity between what is considered affordable housing and what people can actually afford.
Now, it's important to note that the government and the private sector are trying to address the housing crisis, but the efforts are just too disjointed or too slow. The government launched the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, PMAY, which aims to provide affordable housing for all by 2022, but there are still many challenges when it comes to the proper execution.
That's actually a very good point, Anusha. In theory, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is a step in the right direction, but the implementation has been very inconsistent. The land acquisition problems, lack of proper infrastructure, and slow bureaucracy often hold back these plans. And then there's the issue of corruption, of course. Some projects just don't reach the people they're intended for.
Exactly. And there's also the problem of urbanization. As more people move to cities, there's less and less land available for people living in slums. And then the private sector comes in to fill the gap, but often it's more focused on luxury housing or high end apartments, which aren't very accessible to most of the population.
Speaking of access, one of the biggest problems we face is inequality. The divide between the rich and the poor is widening when it comes to housing. Wealthier citizens and businesses can get access to land resources, while the underprivileged have to make do with informal housing.
Yeah, I feel like it's a classic case of privilege. Like, for example, if you're rich, you can afford to live in gated communities with all the amenities. But if you're poor, you're stuck in slums where there is a lack of basic infrastructure and services.
Yeah, and this inequality isn't just economic, it's also deeply tied to social issues like caste, gender, and disability. Women, for instance, often don't have secure ownerships of the home they live in, making them vulnerable in times of family crises.
Alright, so now that we've talked a little bit about the problems, let's get into a few solutions. And I feel like there are definitely ways to improve the housing situation in India. One of the main things that I think we need to focus on is more inclusive urban planning. For example, cities need to be designed with affordable housing in mind, with equal access to infrastructure, jobs, and services for everyone.
Agreed. And urban planners and architects need to rethink how we build cities because sustainability should be prioritized. There are examples in other countries that cities are developing green housing or affordable housing solutions that are both sustainable and cheap.
Additionally, I think affordable housing can't be viewed in isolation. We need better access to financing for low income families, whether through subsidies, affordable loans, or even public private partnerships. There needs to be ways to make home ownership accessible for the masses and not just for the rich.
Exactly. Also, communities need to be involved. In some of the more successful projects, local communities were consulted, and that helped make sure the housings were in line with their needs. That kind of participatory approach is very critical.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the involvement of communities is very important. And that's also why I think raising awareness is key to kind of coming to a useful solution. And I think that people need to start understanding that housing is not just a physical space, but it is a right for everyone, and that everyone deserves to have a roof over their heads. And it's important that we as a society, I think, continue to push for more equitable solutions.
Right, and this isn't just about building homes, it's about giving people the dignity they deserve. Every conversation about shelter and housing should also include the need for better policy, better planning, and a more inclusive approach. And we need to hold both the government and private sector accountable for that.
That's very well said, Kunal. And I think it's been great talking about this, and I hope that our listeners will be able to take away something important today. And if you're listening, spread the word about the housing crisis and the importance of affordable housing. And yeah, let's continue to push for change.
Thanks again, Anusha, for being part of this enlightening conversation. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Remember, shelter is a basic human right. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep advocating for change. Until next time.